There was a time when America was freer, louder, and maybe just a little more dangerous. The 1970s weren't about rules, they were about living life. Kids roamed without supervision, seatbelts were optional, and nobody thought twice about a cloud of cigarette smoke filling a diner. It was a decade of grit and golden sunshine when parents said, "Be home by dark," and that was that. Today, many of those ordinary activities would get you fined, arrested, or even make the evening news. So buckle up, if your car even had seatbelts back then, as we take a nostalgic journey through 10 things that were completely normal in the 1970s, but are totally illegal now. Welcome back to Remembering America, where we rediscover a world before warning labels, safety laws, and modern worries. Let's rewind to a time when life was simple, wild, and real. 1. Playing on train tracks. In the 1970s, kids treated train tracks like an adventure zone. Balancing on the steel rails, racing the trains, or leaving coins to be flattened, it was all part of growing up. No one thought about danger or trespassing laws. Parents assumed kids had enough sense to stay out of harm's way. But as accidents increased and safety regulations tightened, those innocent games became federal offenses. Today, railways are fenced off, patrolled, and protected by strict laws. To us now, it seems reckless, but back then, it was just freedom. Those long summer afternoons, filled with laughter and the rumble of distant locomotives, are memories that still make many smile. It's a reminder of a world where adventure was everywhere, even if it came with real risks. 2. Clacker toys. Every kid in the early 70s had clackers, two hard acrylic balls tied to a string that made a sharp clack 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 when you swung them. They were mesmerizing, until one shattered mid-swing. The heavy plastic could explode, sending shards flying like glass. Injuries piled up, broken teeth, bruises, even cuts that needed stitches. Eventually, the government banned them. But for millions of kids, they were unforgettable. Clackers represented everything about 1970s childhood: loud, colorful, and slightly dangerous. You learned coordination the hard way, a bruise or two at a time. Today's toys come with safety labels and age limits, but clackers came with something better: stories. Anyone who played with them remembers that satisfying rhythm and the thrill of danger that only the 70s could offer. 3. Lawn darts. Lawn darts were the crown jewel of backyard games, part horseshoe, part hazard. These foot-long darts had sharp metal tips, and families tossed them barefoot during cookouts. The idea was simple: land the dart in a plastic ring on the grass. What could go wrong? A lot. After thousands of injuries, and even fatalities, the US banned them in 1988. But in the 1970s, no one thought twice. They were part of American summers, right next to the grill and the Kool-Aid. Parents watched from lawn chairs, confident their kids could handle it. It was a time when fun came first and safety second. Today's world feels safer, sure, but it also feels less daring. Lawn darts might be gone, but they remind us of when the backyard was a place of laughter, risk, and freedom. 4. Easy Bake Oven. Before safety warnings and child-proof designs, there was the original Easy Bake Oven, a metal toy powered by a 100-watt light bulb that could reach over 350 degrees. Kids made tiny cakes and cookies, and sometimes burned their fingers doing it. No one called a lawyer, no one filed a complaint, it was just part of learning. Parents supervised from a distance and trusted their kids to figure it out. In today's safety-driven world, that sounds unthinkable. But in the 1970s, it was perfectly normal. The Easy Bake Oven wasn't just a toy, it was a rite of passage. It taught patience, independence, and maybe a little caution. Sure, the new versions are safer, but they don't carry the same nostalgic glow as that tiny oven light that once symbolized childhood creativity and adventure. 5. Smoking almost everywhere. Picture this: a flight attendant lighting up midair, a teacher smoking in the teacher's lounge, and restaurant ashtrays filled to the brim. That was the 1970s. Smoking wasn't just accepted, it was fashionable. Cigarette ads filled television screens, often featuring doctors and movie stars. Even high schools had smoking areas for students. By the late 1980s, everything changed. Studies linked smoking to serious health risks, and laws began to tighten. Suddenly, ashtrays vanished, and no smoking signs appeared everywhere. Today, smoking indoors is unthinkable, and cigarettes have been replaced by health warnings. But in the 70s, lighting up was a social norm, part of daily life. It's one of the biggest cultural shifts America has ever seen. Back then, a cloud of smoke didn't just fill the air, it defined an entire era. 6. Loose seatbelt laws. Seatbelts existed in the 1970s, but most people didn't use them. Some even cut them out because they felt restrictive. Kids jumped freely in the back seat, babies rode on laps, and no one thought twice. The idea of a click it or ticket law didn't arrive until the 1980s. Back then, freedom trumped fear. Car interiors were wide open, windows rolled down, and road trips felt limitless. People valued comfort and trust over safety. Today, the thought of driving without a belt feels reckless, but in that era, it was normal. Ironically, the same decade that gave us muscle cars and speed limits also ignored the one device that could save lives. It's another reminder that the road to safety was paved with lessons learned the hard way. 7. Minimal child car seat regulations. In the 1970s, child car seats were more about convenience than protection. Most were flimsy plastic boosters meant to help kids see out the window. Safety wasn't the goal, visibility was. Parents trusted their instincts more than instructions. Babies rode in front seats, toddlers stood between seats, and if someone fell during a sharp turn, it was just part of the ride. It wasn't until the 1980s that federal standards made real safety seats mandatory. Today, parents spend hours researching the best models with side impact ratings and 5-point harnesses. But back then, things were simpler and riskier. It's almost shocking to look back and realize how casual people were about child safety. The difference between then and now shows how far parenting and car design has evolved. 8. Drinking and driving. The 1970s were a different world when it came to drinking and driving. One for the road wasn't a warning, it was a tradition. Blood alcohol limits were higher, and enforcement was lighter. Many states allowed drivers to keep open containers in the car. It wasn't until advocacy groups like MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, emerged in the early 1980s that attitudes began to change. The results were devastating before reform. Thousands of preventable deaths every year. Today, drunk driving is one of the most heavily penalized crimes in the US. But back then, it was almost casual, something people didn't even hide. It's a dark reminder of how much America's relationship with alcohol and responsibility has evolved over the decades. 9. Owning exotic pets. In the 1970s, exotic pets were a growing trend. Families brought home monkeys, snakes, and even lions. No permits required. Exotic pet stores thrived, and TV shows featuring wild animals fueled the craze. For a while, it seemed harmless, until tragedy struck. Animals escaped, attacked, and endangered owners and neighbors alike. By the 1990s, laws banned most exotic species in homes. Today, you need strict permits and licenses to own animals like that. But in the 1970s, owning a monkey was just another way Americans expressed individuality and adventure. It reflected the spirit of the decade, daring, free, and a little naive. Looking back, it's easy to see why regulations became necessary, but it's also hard not to admire that fearless sense of wonder. 10. Leaded gasoline. That sweet, metallic smell at gas stations in the 1970s came from leaded gasoline. It powered everything from muscle cars to station wagons, but it was also toxic. Lead in fuel polluted the air and caused serious health problems, especially for children. At the time, few understood the dangers. It wasn't until the late 1970s and 1980s that unleaded gasoline became the norm, and leaded fuel was phased out entirely. It marked a turning point in environmental awareness. The roar of a lead-powered V8 might stir nostalgia today, but it came at a cost, to both health and the planet. Still, for anyone who grew up in that era, the smell of gasoline and the rumble of engines will always bring back memories of freedom, horsepower, and open roads. The 1970s were a time of freedom, fun, and fearlessness, when America was wild at heart. But many of the things we took for granted then would be illegal or unthinkable today. From lawn darts to leaded gas, we learned lessons the hard way. Yet, looking back, there's something beautiful about that era. People trusted themselves more, worried less, and lived in the moment. The world might be safer now, but maybe a little less alive. Remembering the past isn't about glorifying danger, it's about appreciating how far we've come. So, which of these memories surprised you the most? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Remembering America, where history isn't just told, it's felt.